Good morning, Cougs, and welcome to your Coug Connect for August 27th, 2020. My name is Erin Hansen, and I am a human resource consultant based on the Everett campus. Today, I am here to bring you part 4 of my tips and tricks for the Microsoft Office suite of programs. Part 1 covered Word, Part 2 covered Outlook, Part 3 covered Excel, and today in Part 4, we'll discuss tips and tricks in Microsoft PowerPoint. As I've said in my other Coug Connect sessions, some of these you may already be aware of, but maybe you'll learn a thing or two. As with the previous sessions, many of the functions that we use today will use one or more of the keys on the screen, Control, Shift, and Alt. Again, note that these are specific to Windows platforms, but my understanding is you can use the Command key instead of Control if you've got Apple computer instead or other products. All right. Now, as we discussed in part 2, while we could talk about all those cool things that you could do when you're composing something in PowerPoint, we're going to gloss over most of that since almost everything we covered in part 1 is going to function the same way when you're composing or creating something in PowerPoint. So if you're writing text on a slide, if you want to use some of the formatting shortcuts we covered in part 1, you'll use the same shortcuts when you're composing something in PowerPoint as you would if you were composing it in Word. Same goes for if you're writing notes at the bottom of a slide as well. For those of you who haven't already watched part 1, head over to the Coug Connect page on the HRS website and navigate to the View Past Recorded Coug Connect Sessions link and take a look after we finish today. So rather than devoting time to those functions, we're instead going to talk about some of the unique and cool things you can do with PowerPoint that aren't available in other platforms and things you can do with PowerPoint presentations. So these first couple you actually can use in Word and Outlook as well, but we haven't covered them yet, so I figured I'd throw them in there today. The first is the random or Latin text generator. All you need to do is type in equals and then RAND for random, followed by 2 parentheses, and then press enter. And that will create random text for you. You can do the same with Latin text if you do it instead of saying RAND, you type lorem, and then you still include those parentheses at the back. You can refine that request by entering information inside the parentheses that specifies how many paragraphs of text there are and how many sentences are in each paragraph. So I'll show you that in a little bit. Next, if you press asterisk, then tab, you can quickly create a bulleted list. This will work in Outlook or Word as well. So usually I end up using just the dash and then tab to create any kind of a bulleted list, but you can also do that with an asterisk. Then once you've got that bulleted list, if you select a bulleted item and press Alt-Shift and use your arrow keys up and down, you can change the order of your bulleted text up or down. And if you use Alt-Shift and the right and left arrows, you can change the indent level of that bulleted text. When it comes to images, you can select an item, press Control, and then drag that image with your mouse to duplicate it. You can also resize an image with your mouse, which uses the opposite corner as the fixed point. If you're using, you can also flip an image that way. Or if you press Control while you do this, it's going to keep the center of the image as the fixed point rather than the corner. You can also use the Shift key for a similar function, and I can show that in a little bit as well. And you can group images and use those functions as well. So when that's really handy is if you've got a bunch of text on a slide and you need to resize it because you need to make room for something else, rather than change the size of everything individually and hope that you got it to stay the same ratio, you can do it all at once. And you can also select an object, then hold Control and the arrow keys, and you can move it around just a little bit by bit rather than having sometimes it will jump to a different spot on the grid essentially. All right, so other things you can do. First, you can set transparent color to an image. So that is how you take the Coug logo from this to this. Pretty neat function there. You can also remove the background from an image. So that's how I took this picture of the cougar from this to that. And I will show you this in a little bit as well. You can ungroup your SmartArt. So within HRS, we use, or at least I use SmartArt to create org charts most commonly, but you can use it for other functions as well. So if I've got this org chart here, this is the office themed org chart with the regional manager and the assistant to the regional manager and the different sales managers below that. You can modify that SmartArt. So basically, if you want to move those reporting lines around, you can just modify the SmartArt beyond what's built into PowerPoint to begin with. You can use the eyedropper functions. That's how I took the text on the green part of the text in the eyedropper, in those words there and created that green that matches specifically the green on this chart here. You can also animate your charts, which you can do either by series or by category. So with the ones that I've got shown on the screen here, this is simply a chart that I plugged in that PowerPoint allowed to just say, I'm going to input a default chart. So there's no information here that should be new or interesting, really. It's just a chart. But if you want, if you're, say, doing a presentation and you want to make sure that people aren't reading ahead or they're paying attention to what you say rather than looking at and trying to extrapolate information from the data, you can modify it so that you can show a little bit by bit to keep attention on what you're looking at. And that way you can also do it with the series. So if you'll see in this chart, if I press essentially enter or advance to my next part of the slide, it's going to show, sorry, I guess this is by category. Category 1, Category 2, 3, and then 4. So this can be good if you're just trying to make sure that people are staying engaged, essentially, when you're giving a presentation. Right, you can also morph images. So this one's kind of cool. So you've actually already seen a couple examples of this already with the Coug logo and the Cougar picture that I showed you. It's also how I transformed this little star here into a Pac-Man. And then I can make my Pac-Man travel along this little squiggly path and eat the heart over here. So kind of cool functions. Now let's talk about presentation mode. So first, F5 is what's going to quickly get you into presentation mode. Then when you're in presentation mode, you can click W. Oops, sorry, I'm going to go back a page. Click W for whiteout. So if you're trying to keep people engaged and you want them to be paying attention to you now rather than what's on the slide, you can press the W for whiteout. You press W again to get the screen back to the presentation. You do the same thing with B for the blackout part of it, except that for this one, you use escape key to get back to your presentation. You can use Control P, which will open the pointer. So you should be able to see right now, I've got my little red pointer on the slide. I can write text on it. So do whatever I want with that. I can press E, which will erase. I'm gonna go Control, actually I'll just go do that again. Oh, actually no, here I'll show you this. So Control L will do a laser pointer. So here's my way to, essentially, if I'm not standing in front of a screen, here's I can use my laser pointer. You can also do Control I for highlighting. So I want to highlight my presentation mode over here. With the highlighting or with the pointer or essentially the way that you can write on something, you can also then go Control M, which will hide that markup. And then you can do Control M again and it'll re-show it. And then I think the last few things I have for you are that grids and guidelines are movable. You find those under the View tab. So basically when I'm a stickler for trying to make sure that things are aligned and look like a professional presentation. So I want to make sure that my text is not starting in different sections on a page or something. So if you move your grid lines around beyond what's standard, it's easier to actually index off those grid lines. You can also use shape edit points to morph and create animations like I did with that little star turning into Pac-Man. And then the enhanced morph we'll go over in a second as well, but basically you can change an image to another image entirely and make it morph so long as you know kind of a workaround for how to make that work for you. Alrighty, so I am gonna actually just stop, discard that. So now you should be able to see my PowerPoint on the screen here, and I will show you some of these functions. So I'm actually just going to create a new slide here with my text, and first I'll demonstrate the random and Latin text. So RA equals RAND, parentheses, and I'm going to say 4 paragraphs with 3 sentences each. Press enter, and it automatically creates text for me. So it's good for using it as like a placeholder. I'm going to undo that, and I'm going to do the same thing with Lorem. And we'll say 5 and 4 for that one. And now it's created Latin text for me instead. That's pretty fun. Back here, so the asterisk tab, that one's pretty self-evident. I'll let you go over that on your own. If I've got my bulleted list here, like I said, if you use Alt-Shift and those arrows, all right, 1 second here. So now I'm moving my control or my cut up and down in my list. I can also, if I use the right and left arrows, I can increase or decrease the indent on that. Click and drag to duplicate an image or an object, and that'll work with images or with text. So for this text box specifically, I'm going to press Control and drag it, and now I've created an entire second set of that object that I've moved around. So that one's pretty handy. You can resize things with your mouse. I'll show you that on my Cougar image over here. So obviously resizing, again, it's going to use the corner that's opposite of wherever your cursor is. That's going to keep essentially the corner that is stationary. If I press Control when I do that, it's going to make sure that I'm keeping that middle point as the focus point, essentially. Let's see, if I do that with Shift key, it's going to behave mostly the same way, except if I've got other items grouped with it. You'll see that in a second, I think, as well. And let's see, resizing with the mouse, but pressing Control Shift. That'll work with objects, groups of objects as well. And you can group items together. You can select objects to move them. So obviously with, I can just move my image around here if I've got it selected. I'm using my arrows. Ta-da. And let's see, if I show you some grouped art, I'll show you that in a second, if I can remember. So first things first, setting transparent color. This one's actually pretty easy. So when you insert any picture, and I'm just going to reuse this one since it's already here, but I click on my image. It's going to open up at the top here where it's, you know, this is the way to edit the image. If I go to artistic, go to color and go set transparent color, I can click out and remove the gray, or I can do it with a different area, a different color as well. So set transparent color, maybe I want the red to go away. So now I've removed the crimson in that one. You can, with regard to removing a background image, this one can get a little bit tricky because it's going to depend on how sort of simple the background is. It also is really difficult to use if you're looking at maybe something that's got little wisps of hair or something, because those PowerPoint's not really, like the graphics of it, I guess, wouldn't be good enough to catch that part of it. But for this Cougar here, if you click on that image and you open up this, this tab, go remove background, it's going to automatically assume it knows what you're looking at. I wanted to keep the little rock in here. So if I say mark areas to keep, and I mark up that area, it's going to add more of my rock. And it's got part of the ear back here. And now for whatever reason, it's decided it wanted to add some more areas. Then I'm going to put areas to remove. And now I've got my Cougar, although they removed part of his lip again, which we don't want. So now if I just say keep changes, now it's going to remove that. For using Smart Art, this one, you just go insert Smart Art. You've got whatever you want to list in there. When you ungroup an object, though, so first of all, we'll say, I'm going to click on a couple of items here, Control Shift. It's only going to move those two items that I've selected. That was one I was talking about a second ago. Now I've just made it upside down. But often when you're trying to work in something like an org chart, PowerPoint thinks it knows what you want. So if I press tab, it's going to move that chart around for me. But often it, for me at least, behaves in a way that's not exactly predictable. So instead, if you ungroup that Smart Art, so actually I can do it a couple ways. Maybe not. I'm going to ungroup these by, where is it? Now I can't figure it out. It's been a while. We'll go back to that one. We'll move on in the meantime. So basically, instead of moving it the way that PowerPoint thinks you should, you can just move things around. So in this example, and I ungrouped it over here on the previous one, but basically now I can move items freeform without having them be attached to something else. Another kind of cool way to do that is if I can insert, and this isn't listed on the slides, but it's kind of a neat function. So if I want to insert an icon, and let's just say I want to use this little earth one over here, move my icon. And now if I want to ungroup that, that's where it should have shown. So this one says, yeah, this isn't, this isn't a group already. Do you want to convert it? Yes, I do. Now, as you see, it's got all these freeform shapes over on the right-hand side. I can make some of them go away if I want to, or I can move them around as well. So I could cut out pieces if I only want to read the flower or the leaves or whatever. The eyedropper function, so that is, we'll change it, this one to orange. So here I've got my text highlighted already. And if I want to go change it, if I say eyedropper and select whatever color I want, it's going to automatically change the color to whatever I'm looking for. So again, this could be really handy if you've got maybe branding requirements that you have to comply with, things like that. With animating the charts, essentially, I've got my things opening very quickly for me. So if I want to animate it, the automatic functions will allow you to change it by series or by category. So let's say I'm going to duplicate my slide. And actually, I'm going to delete that entirely. So now if I want to insert a chart, I'm going to use let's use a pipe. Yeah, we're going to go back to the column. So same chart that we used before, I'll just say, okay, it will insert my new chart. It's kind of code colors now, so that's handy. This is just what it popped up so that I could actually change the data if I wanted to, but I'm not gonna move that around so it's a little easier to see. And now if I want to animate it, and I can't see my tabs up here because I've got Code Connect stuff at the top. 1 second. Ooh. All right, so design. I can change my axes. I can change my styles and my colors. I can change my filters. And I'm gonna have to find my animations again. And maybe I'll have to go back to that one because I can't remember how I did it. Okay, then we will go to, do I want to show you? No, I think we'll just leave it at that. I'll see if I can remember to go back to that one in a second. But basically you can animate it so that you can show data more succinctly, more specifically, rather than showing everything at the same time. Okay, so this one is the one that I kind of like doing. So like I said, you can change images from what they were started as to something else. So if I'm gonna go, I'm gonna insert a new shape. I'm gonna put in a little lightning bolt over here. And in order to move this or morph that shape, what I'm gonna actually do, I'm gonna duplicate my slide. So duplicate, then I'm gonna take that image, I'm going to drag it to wherever I want it to go. And then if I go to my transitions and I use my morph over here and I want to do a preview of what that's going to look like, it'll show you that I've morphed my image over here. So now when I take my image and maybe I want to change my image a little bit. So I'm going to go to my shape format. I'm going to edit my shape. I'm going to change the shape. My image back. Hold on 1 sec. Editing points, and then if I move those around, it's going to change to whatever I need it to look like. So we're just making a weird little shape here that, okay, now this is what I want my image to use, but in order to then preview that transition, which I'm still using that morph function, it doesn't work. It just automatically pops over in the other corner. So what you actually have to do then is go to your image over here, close that out, and I'm going to view my selection pane. 1 second. Not seeing it. Apologies for the delays here. Basically, what you need to do is you need to change the name of it so that PowerPoint realizes what you are trying to achieve is that it's the same image. So essentially, when you've changed that image now, PowerPoint goes, oh, new image, and I've changed the name of it automatically. But we don't want it to do that. We want it to think that these are the same image to allow that morph to happen. So, all right, so now I've got my lightning bolt here. It's called lightning bolt 3 for whatever reason. That's what it's named in Excel. So if I want to change it to, we'll just say morph because that's an easy thing to remember. Now, if I go to my next image over here and click that, it thinks lightning bolt 3 is over here. If I change it to that double exclamation mark morph, now if I go to my transitions and I preview it, it'll show you that transition to a new shape. And that's the enhanced morph function. With the little Pac-Man over here, basically what you need to do here is for an animation, you need to draw a custom path. So in this case, I just drew the little squiggly line, move my little Pac-Man over, and he's able to now eat that, the little heart. Chomp. And then let's go, I guess I've already kind of shown you the presentation mode functions, but F5 would go quickly into presentation mode. Like I said, W goes into whiteout. You can W again to go out of whiteout, B for the blackout, escape to come back, pointer, erase, laser pointer, highlight, and hide markup. So those are the functions I have for you mostly today. Let's see if I can go back and find my animations now for my chart. There we go. So my new chart that I entered over here, if I go to animations, why are you not letting me? Got my chart animations and I want to, whoa, hold on. Okay, for purposes of this, we're just gonna go back to this chart because it's allowing me to. So I've got my, my chart over here, and if I want to work with the animations of it, I'm going to effect options. I'm going to use it as one object. Actually, for this one, we'll say we're going to change it by series now. And so if I do my preview, it'll show, and that's pretty fast to be able to see it. And you can change the timing on it, but essentially it goes 1, 2, 3 and allows you to show that data separately. So let's see, my smart art. If I want to ungroup something, if I say insert smart art, insert my hierarchy like I've done over in the PowerPoint already, and I say, you know, boss 2, whatever you want to say. Now I've got my new chart. If I want to, I can ungroup it and move things around so that it's not tied to whatever PowerPoint thinks that I wanted to make it in the first place. So you go ungroup. Now it's ungrouped all that data. Now I can move things around piece by piece, essentially. So the easiest way to figure out what part of the data you're looking at is by looking at the selection pane over here and selecting a different item, essentially, and you'll see that as my cursor moves around and as I click on different items, it'll move things. And now I've selected only one part of that and can move it around. If I want to move that data and move the shape on its own, I would just press Control. If I want to press multiple shapes, Control Shift. So, and that's again how you would move an item and change it from one direction to another, or you can move it upside down, and that's using Control Shift. You would be able to move it side to side. So With that, we're going to go back to my slides. And I think that is it. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop them into the chat box. Apologies for the small hiccups. I'm a little bit rusty. But otherwise, just remember to join us on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 10 a.m. And the next session that we have is with Heather Burchell. She's going to be presenting on balancing work and childcare. So that should be a pretty good one. I think a lot of people should tune in for that. Same time, same place, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Oh, yes, Angela, there are so many cool things you can do with PowerPoint. And obviously I'm rusty on some of them, but yes, it is a pretty neat tool to be able to use. And what I'm hoping to go over on my next Coug Connect is how to use some of these platforms together, because sometimes it's really difficult to get maybe Excel to do what you want or PowerPoint or Word, but if you use them in tandem, you can achieve things that you wouldn't be able to use just with one platform. So that's what I have for you today. Thanks for joining.